Hey guys, I'm Eric.
I'm Grace. We're the Wandering Ravens.
We are an American couple that makes videos about everything UK, and today we are talking about the differences between London and the rest of the UK, or not London.
We have spent a lot of time in the UK over the past couple of years, so these observations are from our time spent there.
The first big difference that we notice between London and other cities in the UK is that London is a unique blend of old and very new architecture. This is really different from other major cities like Paris that have a really uniform appearance, as well as other cities within the UK that tend to emphasize either new architecture or old architecture without this complex blend of both. So in London, you have modern buildings standing right next to really old, hundreds of years old buildings, and the city center is this combination of the two.
Our assumption is that this is due to the Blitz and London being subject to a much heavier beating during the war than many other cities in the UK.
Of course, we haven't been to every British city yet though, so if you know of a UK city that does have this same unique blend of old and new that London has, make sure you let us know down in the comments so that we can make sure to visit.
The second major difference between London and not London is that London is very multicultural, far more multicultural than I think any other city in the UK.
This has a number of perks. Not only do you get to practice foreign languages on the street with strangers, but also curry isn't the only ethnic food option when you go out. I remember on our first trip to London, I think we were in the city for a good 2 days before we even talked with an actual British person, or a native British person.
Yeah, that's true. There were many other Europeans there, like Europeans working there on a working holiday visa or something.
Yeah. A lot of young Europeans. We just talked with a cheese girl. She was selling cheese.
She was selling cheese and she was obviously French.
Yeah, there were some cafe workers that were Italian, someone that was Spanish, and I think every service staff person that we interacted with on our first couple of days was from the continent.
Now, of course, we know that tourists are a major part of the foreign crowd as well, as somewhere between 20 and 30 million tourists visit London every single year.
This is a big difference from other cities in the UK, where the multicultural blend isn't quite as strong. Of course, when we were up in the north, we definitely did feel like we were practicing foreign languages as well, given how strong the accents are. Another big difference between London and the rest of the UK, which this one is basically a massive stereotype, but there is truth to it, is that Londoners aren't nearly as friendly on the street with strangers as people in other parts of the UK. When we've been in Northern Ireland and in the north of England and in the Midlands, people have been very friendly. This includes bus drivers, people in shops, service staff at restaurants, people on the street. Yeah, we've met a lot of friendly Brits. But I feel that in London, we haven't really had that same experience.
Except I do remember that one time that we were sitting in a cafe in Ealing, I think it was Ealing Broadway.
Oh.
And we were in a cafe and there was this older couple and they struck up a conversation with us. And
Yeah.
they were quite friendly.
That's true, yeah. And this is one of those situations where we're not sure if this was maybe it's an Ealing thing, but also maybe a COVID thing, because we had just done a month of lockdown.
Oh, yes.
And the cafes had just opened up. I think it was the first day of open cafes, and so we went and we got coffee, we sat down, and this old couple sitting next to us started talking to us and engaged us in conversation for a good 10 minutes. It was
shocking.
It was incredible, yeah. So you guys let us know, was that COVID talking? Or hopefully not. But yeah, was that because of the lockdown, or are certain neighborhoods in London friendlier than others?
Of course, we understand that the stereotypical cold exterior, not really talking or smiling or engaging with people that you pass on the street, is just a big city thing. Like, we've been to other big cities and people are that way everywhere, that there is a large city.
It's just the difference between big city people and smaller city people.
I like it. I love cold, heartless people.
Oh, wow.
The next difference between London and non-London is that London is more expensive. We spent several weeks in the north, in Leeds, and when we returned to London several weeks later, we really noticed this. This really stood out to us because when comparing items at grocery shops, like similar items, the same product in fact, there was always a 1 to 1.5 or even 2 pound difference between the costs.
Yeah, I feel like cathedral cheese, we'd always get the extra mature, sharp cheddar. It's so good.
So good.
Cathedral cheese. And I'm pretty sure in London it was a good 2 pounds more expensive for the same package than it was up in Leeds.
It was, yeah. We literally took photos of it. We were like, this is horrifying.
Tesco has Waitrose prices in London.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Another area in which London is a lot more expensive than the rest of the UK is rent. You can rent a castle in Newcastle for the price of a closet in London. The next big difference between London and not London is how freaking huge London is. It's about 5 times larger than the second largest British city and takes up a massive area. I think it's 40 miles across. Is that right?
I don't know. That's huge, though.
Something like that. Yeah, 40 miles across.
And this ties into our next difference, which is that London isn't walkable. While other UK city centres are ideal for pedestrians, the sheer size of London makes it very impractical for walkers who want to visit multiple sites in a day.
We experienced this firsthand on our first trip to London. We expected it to be like other major cities and having a very easily walkable downtown city center. But to our chagrin, we found out that it takes a good hour to walk from Parliament to Tower Bridge and the Tower of London. And if you want to hit more than 3 major tourist attractions, you're going to be spending most of the day walking, which we did. Yes. We really got our steps in those days.
I know. One day, we probably were out for like 12 hours. It was so long.
In contrast to this, all the other UK cities that we've been to are a lot easier to explore on foot, which we really appreciate because we don't really like spending money on public transportation.
Also, I'm always afraid of what I'm going to find on public transportation in big cities. I'm like, is it going to be a dumpster fire? Are there going to be scary people who look like they want to hurt me?
Grace is speaking about our experience riding the public transportation here in Chicago. Yeah, we're currently in Chicago, and, take it from us, don't ride the public transportation system at night. Story time for a different video. But this does tie into our next big difference, which is public transportation.
While London isn't great for walkers, London is phenomenal for people who want to take the metro.
Yeah, obviously, given its size and prominence within the UK, London has a fantastic public transport system, one that we haven't really seen in other British cities. Actually, that's not fair. We have, Leeds. The buses, I feel, were always on time, and there were a lot of them.
There were a lot of buses, but I feel like the metro system specifically, like the tube, is really good.
You don't have to wait a long time.
Very frequent, and you're always near a metro stop, I feel like.
Yeah, you do always have a metro stop nearby.
Yeah, you're never more than a few minutes away.
And there are a lot of places in the UK where you do have to wait a long time for a bus to come, or a train to come. Yeah, so it does.
It's better in London.
Yeah, it is it's easier to get around in London. If you don't mind paying for the bus.
Or the tube.
Question for the audience. Do you only pronounce it tube in London and the rest of the UK pronounces it tube? Or is it all the UK that pronounces it tube? Because it's not a CH, it's a T.
But that's how it's done. And that's how it will always be done.
The classic comment that we always get, I'm English! Just that. No, the classic comment that we get is, I'm English, you can't tell me my English is wrong. My people invented the English language. By default, I'm correct.
It's mine! Give it back, you've bastardized it, you bastards!
But all that to say, tube etiquette.
The whole tube etiquette in London is a little bit different than it is in other parts of the UK in that you mind your own business in London, you don't talk to anybody, whereas I feel that if you're in the north, perhaps it is okay to speak with someone on public transport.
Basically, when you're riding the tube in London, there's a whole unspoken social etiquette rules thing that exists around that experience, whereas, based on our personal experience, other parts of the UK tend to have much looser morals when it comes to what you can and can't do on the public transport. Which reminds me of a story. One time we got on the tube in London, and we weren't sure that we were on the right line. And so we sat down, and I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna ask this guy sitting across from us a question. He had a daughter, he was an adult man with a daughter, and I thought, he looks friendly, we're clearly married, we look friendly, so I'm just gonna ask him, are we going the right way? So I leaned in and I just said, excuse me, sir, are we headed towards central London? And he reacted with such shock.
I was afraid he might have an aneurysm or a heart attack because he just looked at Eric like he was a talking donkey or something, like it was Balaam's donkey. He was like, oh, I am shook, and he did not reply for a solid 7 seconds. The next difference between London and not London is proximity to nature. Because London is surrounded by so much sprawling urban jungle, it takes a lot longer for you to get from London into the heart of nature. Whereas if you're in another UK city like Belfast or Leeds, the commute to get into Mother Nature is far shorter.
And our final difference between London and the rest of the UK is this. In spite of their cold and clam-like nature, London is the only place we've been in the UK that has found it in their heart to spray paint look left or look right in front of zebra crossings so that tourists don't get killed on the street. And now we're going to turn the conversation over to you. If you disagree with any of the observations that we made today, make sure that you drop comments down there and let us know what we got wrong.
And before we end, a huge thank you to our Chuffed Virtuoso patron, Andrew McKendry. We appreciate you.
Again, I'm Eric.
And I'm Grace.
We're the Wandering Ravens.
And we'll see you in the next video.
Cheers!